Just a couple of quick words about myself. I've been basically doing I've been in several management positions since I would say the last 20 years. I've been living in Portugal for the last 8 years. Before I was in South Korea, before in Hong Kong, and before in China. So I'm coming from a very diversified background, and I came across the cannabis industry 5 years ago. I was basically helping, working in a way for an investment fund that was looking to do some M&A activities in Portugal. So we were doing some real estate, and finally we were doing some cannabis. So at that time, 5 years ago, I was basically looking into the perspective of M&A and acquisitions of cannabis companies, and I was screening basically most of the cannabis projects that were available in Portugal at that time. So that was where it started. So on a pure, let's say, financial and business perspective. And then after 1 year, I was doing something else. And finally, one of the companies that I was auditing was asking me to become their CEO. And then that all started. And then I was full speed in cannabis, 100%. We built a company. We built this company that is called KPIs, basically from scratch. It was a pre-license. We managed to build a full indoor production of 2,500 square meters to get the license from it, and so forth, and basically to go through all the process and have our products in the market. So let me try to see how it works. So basically, the idea today is to share with you some of the key learnings that I got during all this process. So both from my current perspective, that is CEO of a company that is producing cannabis, so with all the challenges and all the things that are happening into the market, but also from a perspective of evaluating a cannabis company in case you want to participate or to buy or to join this type of business. So just a quick one on Key Leaves, what this company is. Basically, it's a certified and operational cannabis company. It's based in Portugal, full indoor cultivation system. So I would say in Portugal, it's one of the 3 companies that are doing full indoor. All the others are greenhouse or other type of cultivation systems. We got GCP license. We are into the GMP certification, last phase. So already got the visit from the authority, and is gonna come the certification within the next 3 months. And we already did 24 cultivation. 24 cultivation cycles. So I would say quite some experience also on cultivation side, and we managed to get some valuable experience and know-how. After 2 years of my experience, we managed basically to sell the majority of the company to an investment fund. That was the goal from the investors at the beginning. So the company now is owned for 80% from an investment funds and 20% from the original founders. And we managed to get a standardized production. That is something that nobody would talk too much, because it's something very difficult to achieve. We got this discussion yesterday night over some beers as well, but it's something that is very critical from the production perspective down to the final patient perspective. And we're currently available, as we are talking, as we are here, proudly available in the German pharmacies with our flowers, and of course also in other markets. This is what we do. Very quickly, we have mainly varieties with ITHC. You can see some pictures here from ITHC. Now, it's like a trendy thing. The more THC, the better it is. That, of course, we all know from the industry that is not true, but we have, of course, to follow the market trends. So we produce anything above 22% THC. We used to produce CBD, and again, CBD market, due to the price compression, went too complicated, I would say, and for an indoor producer, it's something that is not economical anymore. So basically, we are now focused on ITHC. So let's start through all the process and which are the key success factors. The reason why I went through those points that seems to be very basic for any type of business is because when I joined cannabis from a completely different business, I was a bit shocked, because I was thinking that the fundamentals of the business were not there or forgotten somehow, especially on the production side. So the first point that you have to do if you do a cannabis business, or if you want to evaluate a cannabis company, is to define your customers, so to know where you're gonna sell. And this is essential, because we see so many cannabis projects in which we start producing cannabis, but they didn't define very well which is going to be your distribution channel, which is going to be your distribution market, where you're going to sell your products, because it's not just cannabis, but it's cannabis regulation, where you're going to do the testing, how, to which point, and all those things that come together with the production of cannabis. So in our case, for example, we decided to go full indoor, exactly because we were aiming at being on the top of the pyramids in terms of quality of the medical market. So what we were feeling, and again, this is a personal choice, any company can do and take different decisions, but we were feeling, and we are convinced, that if you want to do standardized product that is really for the pharmaceutical market, you have to control all the variables, because you are basically dealing with a living thing, with a living plant. And only with the most sophisticated technologies and an indoor cultivation facility, you can produce something that is really standardized. Again, medical market, very specific, high quality. I'm not saying that is the best solution, but any company can do their own choices, but this is where we move to. Then, once you define your clients, you have to define your products. I would say, I will put here an example of different type of strains with different type of terpenes, cannabinoids, and so on, can deliver to the patient. Of course, this is debatable. I'm not saying that this is the Bible. It's just one example. It's something that is understudied. There are not definitive or specific researches on that, but there is a lot of experience, a lot of medical experience in some countries. So whenever you decide which genetics you choose, don't work only, especially if you work in the medical market, only on high THC and that's it. A lot of other, and good taste, of course, good smell, that are also important. But the main thing is the entourage, evaluate the entourage effect of all the terpenes and all the cannabinoids, because they can really deliver different effects on patients. So basically they can use to cure different type of diseases or issues to the patients. And most important, something that, again, maybe the last part of the value chain doesn't really understand that very well, but if you're a producer, whenever you launch a new genetic, from the moment in which you decide and you find a new genetic and you start working with it and try to standardize it, to the moment it's going to the market, through all the process, including registrations, stability tests, and so on, if you're really, really good and fast, it can take 1 year. It can take up to whatever it takes, because stabilizing a genetics, standardizing a product is something that is really not easy, and then you have all the regulatory part that is really complicated, and it takes forever. We saw yesterday in the presentation for Germany, you have to do a long process, you have to do the MRAD. It's something that takes between 6 to 8 months up plus. Then another essential part, and something again that is very typical from the cannabis industry, is, of course, in every industry you have to create your core team, you have to care of people. Everybody will say the same for every company, but in cannabis you have a challenge that is extreme, because basically you have to match the opposites. So you have to find some people that are good in cultivation, so the typical master grower that is coming from kind of underground background or home grown or something like that, with a team of pharmaceutical people that are completely pharmaceutical, that of course want the SOPs to be completely done and followed, that want all the registry to be properly done, and so on. And then you have to prove to the authorities that this system works, because the authorities, I don't know so many authorities in other countries, but for example in Portugal, Inframed is really fully medical. They treat cannabis exactly as any other medical product. So for them, you are a pharmaceutical company, you have to comply to everything from A to Z, and we have to do it, and we have to live with that. So this, let's say, co-living of different souls within the same business is not easy. I would say was one of the biggest challenges that I found in this industry. Then you have to decide, of course, where to locate your business. Now there are many countries, for example in Europe, that are open for production or even for transformation of the products. It's very important not only to understand, of course, the cost framework in terms of OPEX, of energy, of cost of people, accessibility of talents, and so on, but also what is the local framework in terms of law and in terms of regulation, and how the local pharmaceutical agency is responding. So how fast they are, how open they are to discuss about issues. This is also an essential part, because we saw many projects that were completely stuck and blocked because of not accessibility of the regulatory agency in that place. So again, we choose Portugal for several reasons, but mainly because what we saw at the time is that there was starting to be built a district that was not only production, but was production, services, transformation, and so on. Because you have to also think that even in Europe, even if we are in the European Union, if you want to move products from one country to the other, you have to comply to all the import document, export documents, licenses, and so on. So if your facility is in one country and your radiation facility is in another one, that's already a challenge that you have to face, costs, and so on and so on and so forth. And very important point is to define which is your position in the value chain. Value chain in cannabis is wide, but let's say we can resume it into cannabis cultivation with all the steps, distribution. Oops, sorry. Oh, I cannot go. Yeah, thank you very much. Bye bye. Okay, here we go. So basically, we have seen in the cannabis a lot of trend of trying to do everything and try to be completely vertically integrated. I will go more deep into that. But what we have seen, especially now with the price compression, everybody's talking about this price compression and so on, but it was very expectable. I mean, because the demand is not growing that fast, the offer is growing faster than demand. So I mean, it's mathematics, the prices are going to go down. So my suggestion is to focus on the activities that you know you can do better and more efficient than your competitors. There's no magic tricks, no magic rules. You need to know what you're doing, and you need to focus on what you're doing best and make it efficient. Then very important also point, define very well, especially in the moment in which you are creating your project, the systems and the technologies that you're going to use. Cultivation system, you can choose indoor, greenhouse, outdoor, and so on. I already mentioned it before. Big discussion yesterday about indoor, greenhouse, and so on. There's not a winner. You need to know where you want to sell. You need to know which characteristic your products have to do. There's not the best way to do it. There's just different specifications that you need to comply, and you need to choose and to make your choice wisely and knowing what you're doing. Cultivation technology is another key point. There are now, maybe 5 years ago was not that easy, but now there are so many products available in the market, so many technologies, different light producers, and so on. But what we saw it's working well is to finding suppliers that are not only suppliers of products, but are suppliers of services. So you hook up with a company, for example, that is making lighting, and I'm making a very concrete example, that was following us from the beginning of the project, implementation phase, and today is still with us. So it's still helping us to improve and to do things. We made a different choice in the HVAC, maybe more price driven, and of course they left us alone in the road. We are managing by ourselves, but I mean the key takeaway here is don't choose only based on the price, but choose based on the value proposition. That means price, services, and the future that you can get, because it's something that you invest now but you're gonna use for the next 10, 20 years or whatever. And then you need to do all the other choices of substrates, IT, propagation, trimming technologies, and so forward. The important thing is to remember that whatever you do in terms of decision when you create a facility is not easy to revert. I mean, whenever you need to change it or to move, to upgrade it or so on, you will have much higher cost than doing it right from the beginning. So choose the right technologies, choose the right partner, go and visit all other facilities, make your decision wisely, plan it well, and try to change less things possible later on down the road. Then another classical of the economics in every industry, but again, in cannabis seems not to work very well. Is the make or buy, question. And what I noticed since the beginning is that the tendency in cannabis is to create companies that are completely, fully vertically integrated. So there are companies that are doing from genetics to growing to processing to extraction to branding to selling to distribution that they are coming directly to deliver to your pharmacies. No, not at that point, but basically they do all the value chain. And probably something that very big multinationals can do, companies that have quite I wouldn't say unlimited funding, but big funding that, I mean, we know in the cannabis industry happened maybe some years ago. I don't know if now it's still working, but if you want to create a profitable company with normal, or let's say regular economical metrics, you cannot do everything, because you cannot be good, you cannot be the best, you cannot be specialized in everything. You need an army to do everything well. And there are companies that are better than you to do it. So why doing everything? So again, we were focusing, but again, that's just a personal decision in terms of our company, in growth and part of the processing up to the dried flower, and then everything else is outsourced. So everything that is coming down the road is done by other companies that can do it better than us. It's working. Maybe in the future we can decide to integrate more or less steps, but I wouldn't say there are so many secrets in cannabis anymore that you need to keep inside. So keep inside what is your know-how, what are your techniques, what is your unique proposition, and outsource anything else. And another key point, I would say, again, some takeaways from other presentations from yesterday. I would say this is one of the key points here, especially on the perspective of an investor. So read between the lines on the market research. I'm laughing because when I was starting to do M&A 5 years ago, I was looking at the market researches and I saw this huge growth in Europe and billions and so on. And I see the same things now, just moved more years forward in the future, So we know it's going to happen. We know the cannabis market is going to be huge. But today, you have to make your calculation. And the way, this is my personal suggestion, you should calculate the market is not from expectations, is not from numbers that are coming from here and there where you're mixing any type of medical product related to cannabis or CBD. Just calculate, and numbers are there for every market, which is the number of patients in the market. You know more or less how much they consume and what they consume, and then you can really calculate the size of your potential target market, and you can calculate your market share, where you want to go, where you want to be, and so on and so forward. So that will be a much more fair calculation of the market, and it's something that is feasible and something that you can present to your investors or your board and so on. There are a lot of researches down there available, but they are based on the total cannabis industry, and the total cannabis industry includes a lot of things that are different. I mean, we have medical industry, we have CBD, we have cosmetics, and so on and so forth. So the growth will be there, but don't exaggerate with the expectations with your investors, because it can be painful when things are not materializing that fast. Okay, but if you are aware of this situation, you will size your business according to the market that is there today, not what is going to be there in 20 years. So again, very concrete example, we build a facility in which we have a production capacity between 1.5 and 2 tons of cannabis. And we are already producing 1.5 tons, so it's not numbers that are thrown there, but numbers that we are doing today. And we have full scaling up capability. That means when the market will really grow that much, or when the markets will open and so on, we will be ready to scale up much faster. We already have all the infrastructure in place. Some basic services have already been built for much bigger production, like mothers, like trimming. I mean, a lot of things have ready. But in this way, you don't have a structure that is extremely heavy in terms of fixed cost, because at the end of the day, you have to pay the bills, you have to pay the salaries, you have to pay the energy, you have to clean your facility, you have to do everything every month. And this is heavy, and this is really affecting your P&L at the end of the year. So dream big, start small, act now. Again, this is coming from experience, because I don't know too many production facilities in other sides of Europe, but in Portugal there are production facilities that are ready to produce 50 tons, 100 tons, things like that. And I mean, I don't really see where they can put these products today. So it's a very good bet for the future, but the costs are there today. So as long as you can sustain it, fine, but be aware that you have to make the right calculations. So at the end of the day, you have to face the reality, and you have to do your financial planning. So financial planning cannot be done only on expectation, but has to be done on real numbers. So that's the way I was approaching the cannabis business from the beginning, and I'm still approaching it today. So you have to consider all the timeline and your cost, because the moment you start the project until you get the license and until you can get the products in the market, it's a really long time. Can be 2 years, can be 3 years, can be 1 year and a half, cannot be a few months like many people expect. You have to know exactly which will be your running cost, because that's what you're gonna pay every month. So you have to plan it very well. And the most important point, you have your investment return timeline, and you must be completely aligned with the expectations of your investors. So some project might be profitable in 10 years, in 20 years, in 1 year, in 6 months, whatever. Just make sure that your investors are aligned with the expectations of your project. Because if these two expectations are not matching, you will have problems, you will have financing issues, and so on. For example, in our case, we have the original founders of the company have expectation of returns in the very short term. And of course, the expectations were not matched. So that's why they called me to come to the company and to do some changes and to speed up the process and so on. So we matched their expectation in 2 years, exactly 2 years. We managed to sell the majority of the company to an investment fund. So we changed the perspective of the return, but again, not in 50 years. I mean, it's something that is still in a reasonable time frame, but we are completely aligned between the parties. And this is essential, because cannabis is a long-term game. It's not something that's going to give returns in the very short term, except very, very few exceptions. But I would say in every other case is a long-term game. So you must be completely aligned between investors, company strategies, and reality of the market. So, closing the presentation. My suggestion is, at the end of all this planning and trying to do everything right and so on, we are in an industry that is ever changing, always evolving. We depend, of course, a lot of things always depend on us, but there are many things that depends on legislation frameworks, regulatory frameworks, countries, laws, and so on. And we can see it here in Germany. There was this announcement of full legalization. I saw in Portugal the excitement. Companies, projects that were stuck, they got financing. I mean, it was amazing. And then, I mean, everything is stuck, because I would say the way they're doing it now is not going to bring in the reality a lot of business for those companies. Probably it's going to happen in few years, but it's not going to happen now. So again, your company strategy need to be flexible, need to be adjustable, and need to be to have a long-term target, but also to adjust on the situation of the day-by-day cannabis business. So the best way I could represent it is a chameleon, because he can adjust according to the place he is, to the market he is, and to the environment he is. So you have to be ready to evolve and to adapt to every changing environment, to every market. Whatever happens, keep your eyes open, maybe like a chameleon, look at all the sides, and be ready to enter in all the markets that are opening up. But again, keeping your long-term strategy and your short-term strategy adjusted. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.